Hello, I'm Congressman Steve Cohen, and this is Congressional Report. It's our year-end report, and we're fortunate that Ms. Kontji Anthony of NBC local affiliate Channel 5 WMC-TV joins us to interview me on what's been going on with Congress, the district, and me. So with that, here's Kontji.
Yes, it's great to be here.
Thank you for coming and being back with us.
It's just so much has gone on. This is, you've been here since 2007, right? When you look back on the 112th Congress and you look at the cooperation between the two parties, what do you think people will say down the line in history?
They're not going to think well of the 112th Congress. There has not been very much cooperation at all. This was, when I was elected in 2007, there was a large number of Democrats who came in, and we were called the majority makers by then Speaker Nancy Pelosi. She was elected Speaker with our votes. And we accomplished a lot. And there was some partisanship, no question. The Republicans weren't real happy about it. We maintained the Congress the next year, the 111th, and this year a lot of Republicans came in, Tea Partiers, with their basic goal of being anti-government, reducing taxes and being anti-government. So it's a whole different philosophy than the Democrats have, which we've always done, is have government, make government work, and make government help people. In fact, the Republicans used to kind of be that way too. So because of that, there hasn't been cooperation. There's been a lot of partisanship, and Mitch McConnell got it started for almost immediately right after Barack Obama was elected president, which was in the during the 111th Congress. But when he was elected, Mitch McConnell said, our job is to see that he is not reelected. And the senators have worked on that, and the House members, once they got a majority, have worked on it. And it's been definitely very political, very partisan. And just different attitudes about government, one trying to help people with government and the other trying to reduce government and thinking that the private sector will do it all.
Well, speaking of that, it would seem that Obama's #1 job would be to create jobs in America. Tell me your take on the American Jobs Act. I know that you've been a great supporter, but why?
Well, I'm a sponsor and a supporter because it does several things. First of all, it provides infrastructure money, and we need infrastructure in this country. We're falling way behind in infrastructure. We used to be first and pride ourselves on our roads, our bridges, our runways, even as far as our civic, like sewer systems and all. That's part of infrastructure. And then the digital age is a whole new set of infrastructure, and our utility grid. We're falling behind. China's taking over, and I think we're rated somewhere like 15th in the world in infrastructure. So it provided a lot of infrastructure which creates jobs immediately, the building of those projects, and then those are the projects that get goods to market and help make jobs later in business. And particularly in a city like Memphis, where we depend on transportation, it's important that the roads and the runways and the aviation systems be up to date. But it did a lot of that. It also it dealt with some other areas where unemployment compensation, which we're talking about now still, talking about payroll tax cuts, which is important. Those things stimulate the economy, especially unemployment compensation. It's timely, targeted, and temporary, and it's the thing that can get the economy moving quicker because that money gets spent. People who need unemployment aren't putting it away in the bed or put it in a bank account, or they're going to spend it.
You spoke about infrastructure, the big deal between Memphis and Paris with the Aerotropolis. Tell me why you think that effort and you putting your weight behind establishing and putting money into the Aerotropolis is critical for this area. Of course, FedEx is here. So tell me why you're putting so much of your heart into that.
Well, the reason Memphis is where it is, or exists at all, is because it's on the Mississippi River. And when Memphis was founded in the early part of the 19th century, cities were located oftentimes on rivers. Those were the major streams of commerce. Streams, bad term. Avenues of commerce. They were streams. And now it's airports. It's not where cities are located, but they are the center of a city. Your commerce isn't necessarily down on the river. Memphis we are airport centric. FedEx, Delta, Pinnacle, but really it's FedEx. And FedEx brings in a lot of jobs. I think there are 30, 35,000 jobs in the area, but it also creates jobs beyond just the FedEx jobs. The folks that come here who do warehousing, whether it's Nike, whether it's the book distributors and publishers and all those people.
Because they're closer to a distribution company and they can easier
get
distribute
their goods out and get them the
goods.
next day, especially the biosciences, which we have here. Real easy for them to get their products shipped. So that's important to do. We've gotten the first mention of Aerotropolis in federal law through the FAA reauthorization, which hadn't passed yet, but it's in the bill, and we feel confident it'll finally pass this year.
What does that mean?
Well, what it means is it gives us the opportunity then to have access to funds that we otherwise wouldn't have from two different pools of money. We've worked with Senator Lamar Alexander, who's helped get it on the Senate side. We want to get it on both the transportation reauthorization and the FAA reauthorization, and have two different funds that are right now not open to airports or areas to get funding, to be available for funding. So it gives us an opportunity to get funds. And since Memphis is on the ground floor, we're the first people. I mean, I was the first person to mention it to the chairman of the transportation in the House, Jim Oberstar. He'd never heard of Aerotropolis. John Mike had never heard of Aerotropolis, who's the chairman now. We've gotten the word, the concept in their minds. Getting it into law is major. And then as time goes down, we expect we'll be able to get funding. Now, Milwaukee's joining with me and Gwen Moore. Detroit's interested. Other cities are getting interested and joining and helping us, and we need to help to all benefit. But hopefully Memphis, being on the ground floor, will get the first dibs on funding.
Speaking of business, there were two times that I saw in the last year where you went in and impacted funds coming to businesses here, American Steamboat, and also with Magna Bank. Can you talk about how you stepped in and how they're doing now? Well,
the Great American Steamship is coming back to Memphis, going to do river tours, and they'll be headquartered here.
300 jobs.
Well, Mayor Wharton said more like 560 jobs.
Okay.
I've seen 300, I've seen 560, and for right now, I'm using Mayor Wharton's numbers.
Oh, the higher ones, of course.
Well, Mayor Wharton ought to know, but that's what he said. And the project I loved the riverboats. I thought they were a part of our history, and a nice tourist amenity, and we're a tourist city. In fact, I went down to see the Delta Queen on its last journey into Memphis, and was down at the north end of Harbortown, and visited and went on the boat and saw it, and they had the calliope play or whatever it is, the organ. And I'm a fan of the boats, and tried to help save that boat with some language, because it was an issue concerning the safety. And I don't know if it was a safety issue as much as it was a labor issue, but it got confused, and Jim Oberstar wasn't for it, so it didn't happen. But we tried to save that boat as well. We got this boat in, and they hit a loggerheads, and they couldn't get the thing accomplished. They needed more time to get their financing accomplished, or the deal was just simply going to die. And the people from the Riverfront Development Corporation, Benny Linderman and company, Rick Massano, who I think represents them, called me. And the Great American Steamship people called me, and I made a call to my former colleague, who's the Secretary of Transportation, Ray LaHood, and talked to him at the airport, getting on a plane, and asked him to give us an additional 30 days. And he said, I'll give you 36 days, and you just tell him your old colleague helped you out. And he did. And he's tried to help us on the Tiger, but that made the deal possible. Otherwise, it would have been dead.
Now, tell me, with Magna Bank, you brought more than $18 million in to help with.
That was a small business a banking situation, which I voted for the bill, and then there were two banks that qualified, and it was done on a competitive basis, and I didn't really have anything to do with which banks were chosen. But I did vote for the bill and supported the bill, and ended up bringing monies into our community for small business.
And how is that going?
Well, again, I don't know about that. Usually with the projects, we have oversight, and I do oversight in transportation and judiciary, but we don't generally oversee or try to get involved in projects we bring to the community. I think some politicians have done that in the past, and to be honest, it wasn't appropriate, and they tried to maybe benefit from it personally or politically after it was done. I think my job is to get the money in the community. I think there are agencies within the government that oversee and should oversee and review the projects. But and there are times that I see something and I get, I want to make sure it's working. But I haven't gotten involved in this one.
Okay, well, you mentioned briefly the payroll tax cut battle. Let's talk about money that's coming from the federal government that affect people in their everyday lives. Where does this battle stand?
Well, that's going to give about $1,200, $1,500 per person on average extra money because it'll reduce what they have to pay, have taken out of their checks for the Social Security payments, payroll tax. The president proposed it last time as part of the budget agreement that he had in December of 10, which I didn't support because I didn't think we should extend the Bush tax cuts. The president's proposing it again. I think it'll eventually happen because the Republicans know they will then be tagged if they don't support it with having increased taxes on middle Americans. And they don't want to be seen, they've basically taken this Grover Norquist pledge that they're not going to increase taxes at all. And they've got a pledge to Grover Norquist, which seems to be more, they keep more diligence and faith towards and trust in than they do with maybe the constituency in the country. But they're not going to deviate from that Grover Norquist pledge that they signed, so I'm not going to ever raise taxes. And I don't know if he's given them a release. There was something recently, there was some issue that said, oh, Grover Norquist wouldn't consider something a tax increase so they could vote for it. And I thought, my God, Grover Norquist, who is he's not, in Rome. I mean, what is this? He's allowing people to take act. People are elected by their constituents, and they're supposed to take an oath and do what's best for their country and for their constituency and their constituents and also.
Well, I would say that Republican constituents do support lower taxes.
Oh, they do indeed, yeah. But they don't. I don't think that there's a total, unanimity among all Republicans that there shouldn't be taxes at all. And there are a whole lot of Republicans who believe in taxes. In fact, George Bush, while he had the Bush tax cuts, there were taxes that had been passed, and whether it be gasoline tax increases, which have been bipartisan, to fund the roads, or there's marine taxes we could have to help fund the waterways and projects on the waters to keep our harbors and ports clear, and there should be. And I've gone out on the river with our marine operators and tow people, and they've got a proposal which I may champion next year to help them with that dedicated tax. But you've got to have taxes to run the government, and if you're just anti-tax, you won't have the roads and the bridges and the highways, the runways that you need to move commerce.
You also want grants for mediation between people who are foreclosing and the banks. So what would that do?
Well, the foreclosure crisis has been great, and it was caused by a lack of regulation that came about, kind of a bipartisan mess up on this, really during the Clinton administration and the Congress back in those days. They repealed, and maybe it was before Clinton, but at that time they repealed Glass-Steagall, and that let the banks get into areas they hadn't otherwise been in, and then there was a constant movement toward deregulation. They deregulated the airline industry, and they deregulated a lot of other things. The result is there wasn't much regulation and much supervision of the banks. And they got in all these derivatives, which nobody knew what they were at the time, other than the bankers and some of the finance people, and almost brought the world to an economic halt. A lot of people have lost their homes. We voted in a bipartisan fashion when George Bush was there in the 110th Congress for the TARP program. Not everybody, but a lot of people, including myself. It should have been guided to direct the banks to see that they help people and not just kind of help the banks. And that's what they did, is they helped the banks. They took money from the government and money from the Fed separate and apart from this at like next to no interest, and then lent it out at interest rates, so they just made money on it. Now, much of it's been paid back to the federal government. The banks made a lot of money, and they didn't make capital more available to people. They didn't help keep people in their houses. So we wanted to see mediation, and we wanted to see that the banks did work with people who had their houses foreclosed upon or were in danger in reducing the amount of payment they'd have to make or extending the terms or somehow keep people in their houses. And we also wanted the bankruptcy courts to get involved, so if somebody went into bankruptcy, they could have their house, like a vacation home was considered, something that you could have in bankruptcy, and that the judge could modify the terms. We passed that legislation in the House, and it was a major fight in House Democrats supportive of it, and passed it in I believe the 110th and 111th, I think, but it never got through the Senate. So unfortunately, homeowners are in trouble. President Obama has come through with some administrative actions that he could do on his own to try to help people. They've done a little help, but not enough. And that's been one of the great crimes of what's happened over these last 4 or 5 years, is that while you got to have banks and the economy would have come to a halt, and we still have problems in Europe and they affect us. And we are basically the International Monetary Fund, so it's going to be when the International Monetary Fund saves Europe, it's the United States saving Europe, even if it's once removed. We've got to have a banking system. We've got to have a flow of commerce to make capital available to create industry and jobs, and that creates jobs. But there should have been much more emphasis on the consumer, particularly the homeowner, and seen to it that the money flowed to homeowners. And that's the two biggest issues, I think, the 9/11, the 99ers. The 99%, the Occupy Wall Street, which I visited Occupy Wall Street on 2 occasions.
So you support the whole notion?
I support the notion. I wouldn't say that I'm, there among them per se. I went to Occupy D.C., both to McPherson Square and to Freedom Plaza, and I was at the park in New York, Gucati, I think it is, park near Wall Street, and I visited down there. And I went to a organizing program. I was invited. In fact, Pastor Alvin O'Neill Jackson invited me to come and join with the elders who were there, were old civil rights elders, at the church by Washington Square one night, and help kind of give structure to the Occupy Wall Street people and what their future would be once they were removed from the park and had to find a different venue for the protests. But I think there is the disparity in wealth is unbelievable.
Yeah, well,
the middle class is being
maybe
destroyed.
If people don't understand what it is, it's against greed.
It's against corporate greed. It's against Wall Street getting all the benefits from the TARP package and from other government programs, and consumers and homeowners not getting it. It's about the foreclosure crisis and people being left to sort for themselves while the banks got off. It's about student debt, which is unbelievably great, and it's not anything the government has caused, although the government we've passed some bills in the 110th Congress and the 111th that helped, and more money with Pell Grants and more public rather than private scholarships, which has reduced the rate that students have to pay back on their loans, and some forgiveness programs on loans over the years. But student debt is great for a lot of people. I had a young man from Memphis I ran into his father at AutoZone Park one night. They had a program there for during the Cardinals playoff series, and I went there and I saw, I think Miss Brown was there, the new Miss Brown from your station. She was covering a story.
Oh, okay, yeah, Lindsay.
Yeah, and I met this man, and he said something about his son going to Lewis and Clark Law School. And I said, have him call me, and he called me, and he came up. He's working on Humane Society programs. He's very much an animal advocate, and Lewis and Clark and Law School in Portland has got a great division on animal law and humane law. So he came and he was talking to me, and he said, he's interning with the Justice Department in Washington, and he came by, very bright young man. He had a Hope Scholarship and did all 4 years at the University of Memphis on his Hope Scholarship. Thanked me for that. Was top 20% of his class at Lewis and Clark. He's got $100,000 yet in student debt, mostly from Lewis and Clark Law School. And he can't get a job because the economy's not good.
And you're working to reduce it still. You still have legislation that you're working to try to reduce student debt.
Well, we've got a bill which I've got with Senator Durbin of Illinois to let student loan debt be discharged in a bankruptcy situation if a person gets to that level. A lot of students are at the point where they need to go and file for bankruptcy and get a clear start. But we've got legislation to allow students to discharge that debt. So one of the only kind of debts that's not dischargeable. And it's because the private student lenders got that passed. The bankruptcy law passed in 2005, referred to as BAPCISA, a reform bill, is an awful bill, all deemed to benefit the creditors and hurts the debtors. And debtors are being hurt in bankruptcy court all the time. So we're trying to change that. The student debt situation is major. And I'm still trying to work on the state lottery. I don't have a vote on it anymore, but I've talked to Governor Haslam. I've written Governor Haslam. I talked to the Revenue Commissioner last week. I've talked to Representative Brooks in Knoxville. I sent a letter out to all the legislators. Representative Brooks called me, we talked. Senator Ketron wrote me, and we talked. Senator McNally. And I just think they don't need to be reducing the scholarships at a time when people need money, are in economic hardship, and the money is there till 2024.
Didn't you hit a milestone this year? Was it $2 billion?
Over $2 billion has been raised from the Hope Lottery Scholarship to help people with college scholarships. Of course, that's what it's supposed to be for, and it is for that. But Governor Bredesen, when he was there, took $25 million a year for 4 years, or $100 million out for pre-K. And pre-K is important and good, but it was an issue which should have been taken before there was excess, and it wasn't supposed to be taken until after there was excess. Now we see there wasn't excess. And then there was another program to take almost $100 million out to give, like as earmarks, or politicians going out and giving out basically, I'm going to say my money. It was the money that I worked 20.
They took my money.
Right. I worked 20 years to get it. None of them were out there with me going across the state of Tennessee to see that referendum passed. And then they all wanted to take it, and it was mostly on the other side of the aisle, many of them didn't vote for it, and give those away for greening of public schools. Good project, but spitting in the ocean, and that's $200 million that's gone right now when they're saying, oh, we need it, and even though they've got 250 in excess, they're talking about cutting scholarships to needy students. That's a shame, and it's wrong.
Speaking of education, I was interesting at one point, thinking of the University of Memphis, you actually honored Larry Finch on the House floor. That was interesting because it's a rare thing to hear a Memphis name like that, on a national platform. That was a great loss. The former University of Memphis Tigers basketball.
It was a great loss, and I knew Larry, my district director Randy Wade, and he were very, very close friends. I was a friend of Larry's and visited Larry several times in the nursing home over the last few years of his life. But before that, used to go out and sometimes hang with him at the athletic department and just talk and see him all the time. And a nicer guy you couldn't find, and a real hero in Memphis. I just happened to I was a Vanderbilt student and went out to Memorial Gym and watched the state high school championship game that was being played in Memorial Gym that year. And it was Larry and Ronnie playing for Melrose, and they lost to Chattanooga Riverside. I think it was Richard Fuqua was their great shooter. And it was a phenomenal game, and Larry was the first time I saw him, and he was great. And I immediately saw he gave it his all, and he gave it all for the University of Memphis and took us to St. Louis in the final game, and was a great coach and a great Memphian. So yeah, when I have a chance to honor somebody, I do it. And I was real pleased in my first term to have recognized and honored Odell Horton with the new naming of the federal building rather than Clifford Davis, one of my predecessors in Congress. It became the Clifford Davis - Odell Horton Federal Building. Also, Kenneth Whalum Sr., we named the post office for him downtown on 3rd Street. I've always been a proponent of, I've been a history major, revere history, and think that people's good names should be remembered after them. I've done that when I was a state legislator with the Lucius Birch Natural Area, with the Music Highway going from Memphis to Nashville I-40, which recognizes a lot of different musicians, including Tina Turner and Booker T and the MGs and Sam Phillips and Elvis Presley and B.B. King. And when you get closer to Nashville, it's Loretta Lynn and Hank Williams and George Jones, and people that have been part of our history to be recognized and remembered. And so I just think that's something you need to do. And at the College of Art, I've done things to memorialize Ted Rust and Burton Callicutt. And then Coretta Scott King, we named a part of the interstate in her memory that runs into the Martin Luther King Highway. So it's something I've done and will continue to do. None of that was done before I was elected to Congress. In the previous many years that we were here, the only thing I know that anybody ever did to honor a person was the Lieutenant Lee Post Office, which no longer exists on Mississippi near Lamar. And that was the only time, and I think that was in the 70s. And after that, nobody was honored. Lots of people deserve to be honored, but nobody was honored.
You just said post office, and that made me recall you've been fighting to not have the budget issues take away the post offices. Where do you stand there?
Well, I'm a supporter of the post office and the postal employees. I guess it's a history major. I like getting mail. And we don't get as much mail as we used to because you've got mail. That means you got it on your internet, and that's different now. You've got mail. But postmen coming, I've always been friendly with my postmen. I like them bringing the mail. A lot of employees that are in the post office are folks that otherwise didn't have a history of chance to get jobs. The African American population has had opportunities to get jobs over the years in the postal areas when they weren't allowed in the private sector, and so that's kind of an institutional place. I think that there's $5 billion that was paid into retirement monies that was different from any other agency. And there are bills filed, of which I'm a sponsor, to take that $5 billion that's put in to pay for retirement, that unlike other federal entities, and to allow that to be used for postal operations. If that bill passed, they wouldn't have to be cutting closing post offices, possibly eliminating Saturday service, and or making first-class service be 2 or 3 days. And if you lose people from using the mails and paying their bills and they go to the internet, they're gone generally forever. So it's penny wise and pound foolish. I spoke on the floor about it last week. I have a dear colleague with 37 other House members that we just sent to the postmaster today and put it out publicly today. And I saw Bernie Sanders at the White House last night, and Bernie's leading an effort in the Senate where I think there are 16 senators who have joined an effort, and Senator Sanders and I are working together to try to maybe find some way to put something in one of these appropriations bills that'll say the post office at least stay up for another 6 months and give us that time to get that $5 billion back. And then I've got my own standalone bill that will allow the post office to go into other areas. They're limited right now by law where they could sell merchandise, they could sell novelties, they maybe have copying machines. They used to do notaries. I don't know how much notary business you'd have, but other businesses to bring in additional revenue. And as I passed a post office today on the way here, I was thinking that there's all kind of federal projects, and a lot of them go through state offices, but some of those maybe post offices, we've got prime real estate. Rather than selling the real estate, you could have some other agencies move in with the post office and find ways to make them cost effective. But I don't think closing it's a good idea. There are a lot of people that aren't hooked up to the internet, can't afford Federal Express or UPS, aren't going to drive to a FedEx and UPS. A lot of seniors who depend on the post office to bring them their mail and bring them their checks, and just used to doing it. I pay my bills, I put my stamp on it, and I take it to the post office.
Okay, well, some people do bill pay online, but you say this, and it's interesting to me. After 5 years, we've been doing these annual wrap-ups for half a decade, and this is my first paperless interview with you. Where does technology fall in what the federal government needs to focus on? Is that something that you?
Oh, it's a concern, and technology is a blessing and it's a curse. And technology is wonderful, but what's happening is, I used to be able, I can tell you Minerva Johnigan's phone number, 942-2196.
I don't know anybody's number.
Well, it's right. And
where I work.
Exactly, 726-0516
Okay,
is
Mom.
news.
0416, very close.
Is it 04?
That's the inside number. You just put it out there. Well, that's if you
Hi,
have a
folks.
news tip. If you have a news tip, call that number.
Yeah. But I used to like Minerva's, I had one of the county commission in 78 to 80, and I know that number. And there's some other numbers, a few others like that I know, but I don't know anybody's number. There was a girl I dated for 2 years, but I hit her phone number on my phone. I had to think of her number. I couldn't think of it.
Wow.
And I have all my friends, unless they were friends I had 15 or 20 years ago. These technologies make you lazy, so they deter you from learning how to spell. Because you don't have to get out a dictionary anymore. You push spell check and a machine tells you how to spell.
And then you kind of write like no offense doctors, but you kind of write like a doctor. It's like chicken scratch.
Yeah, you can do whatever you want with it. But the technology, it's such that it's eliminating a lot of jobs. A lot of jobs are being replaced by these machines, and you call up and you get a machine. Now, and then you have to listen to the message, and then if you dare talk to somebody else or say something and they hear it, they say, they start over, or they go to the wrong key.
Please don't. I'm stressed out just hearing this.
Oh, it stresses you out.
I'm
so that's
stressed out.
the curse of technology. It costs people jobs. It sends jobs. A lot of these jobs are going overseas to India, and that's another bill I've signed on to recently to say if you live out of, if your call center is out of the United States, that you have to say on the front, I am
where you're
X, and I am in Manila, or I am in Mumbai. And if you want, you can say, I want to talk to somebody in the United States, and they have to give you somebody in the United States. I was making a plane reservation last year, and I asked them to make a reservation to Louisville. And we just, talking along about the Kentucky Derby, and this person says, and he named me 4 or 5 Louisvilles. I thought, where are you? Well, they were in Manila.
Well, so what do you do to create jobs when everything is getting automated? I mean, how do you approach that whole?
Well, you have to look at new areas to create jobs, because the automation is taking jobs. It's hurting the post office, it's hurting the call centers, it's hurting a lot of areas, because it's look at the airports. I mean, everything, you get your tickets online, you pay
I
for.
love it. I'm sorry. I have a love-hate relationship with it. I
Well,
love
I
it.
know, we do. It's
I love
convenient,
technology.
and you get it, but you know, people aren't there working anymore. I remember when there was a man out there named Roosevelt, and there was I forget and a couple other people were out there all the time, and you knew you had interaction. So technology means you have less interaction with people, less memory of phone numbers, less learning to spell, et cetera. So there's a curse to it too. How do you can come up with new areas and solar and new ways to create jobs, and this is what we've tried to do, is to come up with solar and wind and have the green jobs. And that's a whole lot. Solar, Sun just, Sharp just put 30 new people on, they hired, because solar's doing good in Tennessee and Sharp's producing a lot of panels. So as we put money into solar and into wind, we create new areas that we can have jobs and create jobs. So that's one of the major areas, is green jobs.
So yeah, there's a new plant that's coming? Isn't former Governor Bredesen involved in bringing some kind of energy?
He's got some type of solar program.
Yeah.
Matt Kisber's involved.
So you think is that the next big thing? Is that what we're doing?
It's definitely one of the next big things. And solar is, we need it to get out to help preserve our integrity and not having to deal with the Middle East on so many issues and having wars to keep the oil being shipped here, and eliminating our defense spending. And we could spend less in defense and more in other areas if we didn't have to depend on oil from the Middle East.
Why has that Canadian pipeline been such a, I've just seen it woven throughout the year. It just seemed to be part of your dialogue throughout the year a lot. Why is that so critical to you? Can you explain that, what it is?
Well, the Keystone XL pipeline, of which there is one now, this would be another one. This is the XL pipeline. There's a Keystone pipeline. It's a pipeline from Canada. Right now, I think the line they've got terminates in Oklahoma. This would be a second one from Canada, and it would go all the way to Galveston and to the Gulf of Mexico. The Canadian government is in a major way trying to push it because they have this oil, this tar sands that can produce oil in Alberta, and it would be a big economic benefit for Canada. It would indeed create jobs here in our country as well. But it goes over the Ogallala Reservoir, which is where much of the Midwest gets their drinking water and their water for crops and for livestock. And if there would be a leak, and the Keystone, they say it's going to be, the safest pipeline, it's safe, it's safe, it's safe. Well, BP said their rig was safe too, and it wasn't. Keystone says that the pipeline they've got now is safe. It's had, I think, 12 or 15 different leaks in its first year and a half of operation. There was a major one in Michigan. There was a leak of another pipeline in Yellowstone. There have been other leaks of the Keystone pipeline, and so we don't have any great faith in Keystone XL. One of the great scientists of our time said that if the Keystone XL pipeline is allowed to take what is the dirtiest oil known to man, which is this tar sands, it's very environmentally difficult and costly to produce because of the heat that you need to mine that tar sands to bring it up and make it into oil. It takes a lot of energy and puts a lot of carbon into the air. And so the carbon footprint is great to produce the oil, and then the tar sands itself is a very dirty, thick type of oil which produces more carbon footprint. And the thought is, if we take this step, much of the oil will probably end up going to China regardless. That's where it's determined, the termination site would be. But that he said, if you do this, you're basically saying, forget it for global warming. Game's over. Game over as far as preserving the environment.
And there are still some who believe that global warming is a farce.
There are some who do, although one of the leading scientists that thought it was a farce and was behind leading proponents or opponents of this recently came out and said, sorry, I'm wrong. studied it, and because they were thinking that the changes in weather, partly caused by so many people living in cities and the asphalt that had been laid, and city life and humans being congregated together. He took his climate data from around the country and from the world, and from places where there were not large accumulations of human beings or concrete or buildings, et cetera, and found that there had indeed been global warming on the earth, and changed his perspective. I think the gentleman who made the statement's name was James Harmon, but he's the one that said, game over. So the Keystone XL pipeline is danger, a risk to our ecology, our water supply, and it's also a risk to our overall environment with global warming. And we need to be looking at alternative forms of energy, solar, we need to be looking at wind, we need to be looking at more efficient cars with better fuel mileage ratios, and we need to be looking at electric cars. And those are places also you create jobs. You get into electric cars, you get into the electric stations and all that, that creates jobs. So you have to have cutting edge technology and cutting edge industries, which we can't have. Unfortunately, right now, the leading solar people are in China.
Tell me about healthcare. Let's get right to that. Where does it stand? I know there was an effort to repeal the new healthcare laws.
The courts will decide whether it's constitutional or not, whether the individual mandate is permissible, and the Commerce Clause is the issue that they're looking at, and certain courts have ruled that it's impermissible, others have said it's permissible. Split goes to the Supreme Court. There's arguments going on politically. Should Clarence Thomas be allowed to sit on that case because his wife has been involved with a lot of anti-healthcare right-wing groups and got a lot of money from it that wasn't disclosed for a long time, and others are saying that Justice Kagan shouldn't be allowed because maybe she was involved in some of the health care planning or argued as Solicitor General in some of the cases. It's unclear. Probably they'll both sit in and make that determination because they're supposed to do an objective basis anyway. We know the Supreme Court they're human beings, but regardless, they'll probably both participate. The case will probably be heard this summer, right before the election. The Republicans are trying, and in fact, with the proposal they're going to make, which I feel confident won't pass, and if it should pass, because it won't see light in the Senate, and if it gets back, the president's vowed to veto it, the unemployment compensation, the payroll tax issue, and the doctor's fix, they put a lot of riders into it. And one of the riders and things they put in, besides the Keystone XL pipeline, trying to mandate that it go through, is that they put in that there'd be money. They would not put monies in the budget to start the implementation of the health care bill, and they want to starve it. And they've been doing budget proposals throughout the year to not implement the health care bill and to not give it federal monies. The health care bill is going to save us money.
Well, yeah. Explain.
And in fact, it already has.
You know, for me, what's going to happen when it goes into effect?
Well, a lot of things are going to happen. There are going to be exchanges in each state that will give people the opportunity to get better rates for insurance. It's going to be an insurance-based system, and you get insurance or you can get it through the exchanges, and by having more and more people in the pools, it'll make for lower insurance rates, higher number of people, and so the risk can be spread greater. Nobody with a pre-existing condition will be denied insurance. That's very, very important, and that's happening already. The donut hole is being closed, and Americans saved $1.5 billion from having generic drugs given to a certain degree in the donut hole, which is a level between, it's a certain, about give or take $2,600 or something like that of your drugs up to about $5,000. And in that area right now, it's a donut hole, and you don't get any of your monies paid, drug bills paid for. But now you're going to have some of them paid for because of the bill, and they can use generics, and it saved Americans $1.5 billion last year, and the average senior saved $569 because of the bill, and that'll get to be more and more as the donut hole is totally closed, which is the goal of the bill, and that's what's going to happen. It was just phased in over a period of time. So the donut hole is important. There'll be more community health centers. There'll be people who have insurance. There won't be needs to go to emergency rooms. That's the most costly health care possible. The med doesn't need to be seeing people for that type of health care. So there's a lot of other facets of the bill as far as giving med students the opportunity to go into underserved regions, whether rural or inner city, and get some of their medical school debt paid back and have debts forgiven. So it encourages doctors to go into inner cities and rural areas and into family practice. Family practice is a major area. There's a whole lot to do with record keeping and keeping records on computers through technology, which makes it much simpler. The doctors can see what a person's past medical records are, and they don't have to duplicate tests, and they'll already know what the other doctors have done. And if that's all kept on technology, it'll save money in the long run. The health care bill will save money.
What do you say to people who argue or say that they feel like it's socializing health care?
It's just that's what the Republicans said, and it's one of the things that was said by the PolitiFact at the journalism school down there in St. Petersburg, Florida, that is like the guru on ethics. And they said that was the biggest lie of one of the most recent years. And the Republicans have had several lies that have been pointed out as the biggest lies. And that was one year, was the biggest government lie, was that it was a government takeover of healthcare. It's not a government takeover of healthcare in any way. Insurance companies, private insurance companies, will give and continue to provide the insurance for people. That's not socialism. That's not at all socialism. In fact, of course, it started with Mitt Romney, and he's trying to dance away from it, but the fact is the first type of program that was ever passed in this nation to mandate the purchase of insurance was the state of Massachusetts, who was Mitt Romney. And it was talked about by Senator Chafee during the 90s when President Clinton and Mrs. Clinton tried to get health care, and they were not for an individual mandate, and they started off with a single payer system. And that might be more effective. It probably would be and save more money. But regardless, the Republicans are the first ones that launched this, and it might have been back, I forget if it was during President Bush's administration, the first, or if it was later on, but it was Republicans who first started talking about individual mandates and having insurance. It was Bob Dole, and they advocated it. So it's no government takeover. That's just not true.
Now, you spoke on the House floor about the importance of funneling money to, for Planned Parenthood to have federal money. I don't know if this is something that you've been watching, but I don't know if you've heard Shelby County has taken over a Christian family planning contract.
Christ Community Health Center.
So how do you feel about that? I know that you were fighting for Planned Parenthood.
I'm a supporter of Planned Parenthood being able to get federal dollars. And during the budget debates at the beginning of the year, many of the Republicans tried to get Planned Parenthood to get no money whatsoever. It's less than 10%. It may even be I know it's in the single digits, but a very minor amount of what Planned Parenthood does is abortion. Mostly they do family planning. And there are a lot of women in this community particularly who can't afford physicians, and they get their family planning, or they go to Planned Parenthood for birth control. They go to Planned Parenthood for cervical cancer screens, women's health in general. They go there for AIDS testing, and these women won't be able to get that care where they've been getting it at that reduced price, which Planned Parenthood helps them with. Planned Parenthood is a woman's center, and it's wrong to cast them only in the position of being involved in abortion, which is a very minor part of what Planned Parenthood does. Planned Parenthood is birth control, and it's women's health. It's not abortion. But that's what, as far as the local controversy, I did not get involved in that. That was a decision made by the County Commission and Mayor Luttrell. Christ Community Health Centers do a lot of good in our community, and I'm a big proponent of them. I wish this issue wouldn't have come up, and I wish Planned Parenthood would have kept the contract, but I'm a very strong advocate. Christ Community Health Center has gotten grants from the federal government as part of the American Recovery and Investment Act to do clinics and health centers in Binghamton, in southeast Memphis, in Hickory Hill, and also before the American Recovery and Investment Act, they had funds from the federal government. Then Congressman Ford and I appeared in 2006 in Orange Mound. So Christ Community Health Center does a lot of good, and they're a champion of theirs, but I thought the women's issue should have stayed with Planned Parenthood.
Okay, the Newborn Act, that's another act that you're involved in that will affect us locally. Tell me about your involvement in it, what it means, and where it stands.
It's a major national program to look into the causes of maternal infant mortality and maternal mortality. I've been very involved in the issue because it's a major issue in Memphis. We have zip codes here that are in third world categories. And the United States is very low in its rate. I think we're 22nd in the world. We should be first in not having infant mortality. We're 22nd, and it's a shame. The bill we had was in the health care bill, the American Cares Act, in the House side, and I tried to get Chris Dodd, and Chris Dodd promised me get it in the Senate side. He didn't. And because of that, it didn't get in the final law because it had to be dealt with under budget reconciliation rather than conference committee, and what was not in the House Senate bill at the time it passed, or was considered for passage, nothing could be added to it unless it dealt with fiscal matters. So we weren't able to get it. So we have a freestanding bill now. We haven't been able to get a hearing in the Republican Congress, but we're going to continue to work on it. We had a briefing this year with Spike Lee's wife, who's done a lot and done a film here in Memphis on infant mortality.
I remember when she was here. Yeah.
And Tanya. And she's a great lady, beautiful lady. And we had a hearing up in D.C. at the Capitol on this issue. We're trying to get more and more support. We work with CARE, who works on international issues. They don't work locally, but CARE had Christy Turlington in, and we went to a briefing with her, and we're
the model.
Yeah, she's beautiful and
well,
brilliant.
Of course. I mean, I didn't know that she was here in Memphis.
Well, no, she hadn't been in Memphis. She was in Washington.
Okay.
She's going to come to Memphis.
Okay.
I asked her to come to Memphis, and she said she would.
Yeah.
And this infant mortality is her issue. She went back to school, and she's getting a degree of some sort. I don't know if it's a law degree or a PhD, but she's at Columbia.
It's shocking. I mean, who was it? The actress who just got a civil rights award, Eva Longoria. She's going back for her doctorate. I'm like, who does that?
Exactly.
How do you have the brains and the beauty like that? Let's move on to two very controversial issues. One, the Right to Carry Reciprocity Act. I mean, can you explain what that is, and why do you want this?
Well, I'm opposed to it.
Oh, you're opposed to it.
I passed the right to carry bill in Tennessee back in the 90s. Roy Herron was my House sponsor. I was a Senate sponsor. It was probably in the early 90s. And I felt like if somebody, I really got it because I knew some of my law clients who were charged with carrying a pistol, women, were carrying a pistol because they feared for their lives. And I felt like a woman should, if she didn't have a criminal record, a man as well, didn't have a criminal record, went to a firearms course, learned firearm safety, learned how to shoot a gun, could hit the target, do all those things, ought to have a legal right to carry a gun and shouldn't have to get arrested and charged with carrying a gun when they just had it for their own personal safety, and they shouldn't have to hire a lawyer and lose the gun. And that's what happened. People had to hire me, lose a gun. Not right. So I passed the bill. It's worked in Tennessee. It's worked in most states where we've got it. I think there's maybe 36 states that have right to carry laws. Some states you don't have a right to carry because you're supposed to be born with a gun, and you're supposed to carry it everywhere from your teething to your to your coffin. But that's Alaska and Arizona. I think they got standard. There might be another state. But anyway, regardless, each state then can set up its own determination of which other states' laws they will accept and permit gun permit carriers from another state to come into your state with the right to carry. And Tennessee had decided that it decided it would let anybody who had a gun permit from another state come into Tennessee and carry a gun. Well, the legislature did that after I was gone. When we were there, we didn't have those lax standards. But what's happened is a lot of things have happened in the last 3 or 4 or 5 years in Nashville that is really unfortunate. Guns in bars, unfortunate. Some other things. But this bill that came up in Congress was a bill that was pushed by some folks that wanted a national law to say that any state that had a right to carry bill, that any citizen who had a right to carry permit in any state could go into that other state and carry their gun regardless of the laws of that state. So in essence, what is this? While Tennessee says anybody can come in Tennessee who has a right to carry from another state, states like New York say you can only come into New York and carry a gun if the state from which where you got your permit meets the same standards as New York State does. Some states don't allow anybody to come in their state with a permit from another state. If you don't have one from your state, their state, you can't have one. Others say it has to be a law that's equally difficult to get, and some others pick and choose the states. However, but the states determine it. And I felt that the states are doing a good job already in determining on their own which permits they want to recognize, which citizens' permits they want to recognize when they come to their state, and it should be left up to the states. The Republicans, normally great advocates of state rights, weren't in this case because guns trump state rights, obviously, for them. And so they said, pass this law. Hadn't gone through the Senate yet, but it's passed the House. That would say, and I don't think it'll get through the Senate, but who knows, that would say that that you could carry your gun if you get a permit in Utah with very lax standards, in any state, including New York, which has very high standards, and New York couldn't stop you. Best example, which was an amendment I put on the floor, there are 8 states that say you have to be 18 years of age, only 18 to get a gun permit. In Tennessee, you have to be 21. So somebody in Tennessee cannot carry a permit and get a permit to carry a gun if you're under 21. And I think that's a legitimate age. But if you were 18 or 19 or 20 and had a permit in, say, Alabama or Arkansas, I know Alabama's one of the states, Arkansas isn't, but Alabama's one of those states that let 18-year-olds get a permit. An Alabama person could come to Tennessee and carry a gun at 18, 19, or 20, while a Tennessean couldn't. And that just doesn't make any sense.
But there are some who would say that, if you're 18, you can go fight for your country with a gun. Then
well, and
why
that's true.
21?
But it's a select group of people who fight for their country, a select type of training that they receive in how to handle their guns, and they're not supposed to carry their guns and don't carry their guns other than in a military manner. They don't carry them on the street, and they don't carry handguns out in bars and out in the community. They are limited, and it's a very select group. And our state has made that decision, even though some people say that. Our state's made the decision in the law that was passed back in the 90s that I sponsored, hadn't been changed, that you have to be 21 to carry a gun. And that's the law in Tennessee. So why should an Alabama citizen be able to come here at 18 or 19 and carry a gun, and 8 other states which have that law, because the federal government says you have to make them do it? We battled this out on the House and Senate floors to make sure that we had the best standards for Tennessee, and we shouldn't have to deal with Alabama standards because Washington says we have to. It was really an interesting position, Kontji, because the Republicans had to do somersaults in getting out of what they can otherwise are prime proponents of states' rights and devolution. In this case, guns trumped states' rights. Okay,
the other controversial issue that I think is controversial, and I'm wondering, why does he keep pushing for this? It's you want limited federal input on marijuana laws surrounding the use of marijuana.
Yeah, I think that we've got 15 or 16 states that have medical marijuana. I think when people have got cancer or glaucoma or Parkinson's, AIDS, marijuana has been shown to be a benefit and a medical benefit. I think people should be able to get medical marijuana. I also think that the federal government should be spending its time dealing with meth and heroin and crack and cocaine. Those are drugs that cause people to get addicted much more in a much higher manner than marijuana. Marijuana does not have the same addictive qualities as heroin and crack and meth and cocaine. And then when people are addicted, they have to go out and resort to sometimes crime or violent crime to get monies to get their drug, and maybe just to get their drug, break into pharmacies or whatever they do. The drug war has been a failure, and I think we need to concentrate on those drugs that cause violent behavior and crime problems, which are meth and crack and cocaine and heroin, not marijuana. I think the states should make those decisions and not the federal government, and I think it should be left up to the states. As the states deal with alcohol, each state determines its alcohol laws. I think each state should determine the drug laws. Now, this proposal that Ron Paul, Barney Frank, Barbara Lee, John Conyers are also sponsors of, and some other folks as well, would still make it illegal to ship marijuana from state to state, and interstate shipment would still be illegal, and the federal U.S. attorney could still prosecute those cases. But in a person who might have marijuana or cocaine or crack or whatever in their own home, that should be up to the state to decide on a possession basis, or if it's a casual trade within the state should determine what the laws are on that.
I cannot believe that we're almost out of time. It didn't feel like an hour to me. All right, we took a look at 2011. What are you looking forward to in the next year?
2012 will be more of the same. It's going to be politics. It's going to be the election. The Republicans are going to try to do everything they can to make President Obama and the Democrats running for re-election in the Congress and the Senate, where they hope to take the Senate and keep the House, make us look like we are, make it difficult for us. The Democrats, we're going to say and be for the middle class, for preserving Medicare and Medicaid and Social Security, and for the middle class opportunities, scholarships, and a fair tax system, and for repealing the Bush tax cuts, and creating jobs and infrastructure, and helping small business create jobs. And the Republicans are going to be preserving the Bush tax cuts, and they're against all tax on millionaires. We've been trying to just tax the income of people making over $1 million. They won't even tax that, defend that. They're attacking all the EPA regulations, which we generally support, clean air, clean water, OSHA standards. They want to get rid of those, get rid of regulations, make it so difficult you won't have any new regulations, and free up industry to pollute and to do whatever they need to do.
You're upset about the voter ID pictures.
Oh, that's I think an intentional national effort hatched by the Koch brothers and Rove and others to suppress the African American, the young, and the traditional Democratic vote. Voter IDs, I think I read somewhere you're more likely to get hit by an asteroid than you are to have somebody fraudulently vote. We have a very low turnout already. There are a lot of people, a high percentage of African Americans, high percentage of students, high percentage of Latinos who do not have voter IDs, the picture IDs that qualify. If you don't get one, and there are the first Saturdays of each month, you can go to a driver's license station and get your photo ID, and it's supposed to be free of charge to get that photo ID. But it's only the first Saturdays, and people need to know about that. But they need to get that photo ID because they go to vote, or they can vote absentee, but there'll be a lot of people be denied the right to vote. And America should not deny people the right to vote. It's like Jim Crow. And so I've been working with the NAACP and with other members on a caucus to try to bring that to the light. And I've talked to General Holder about it, and to try to inform people so they will get their picture IDs and be prepared to vote in the elections in 2011. Those are some big issues we've got coming up. I hope to be a regular on Up with Chris Hayes. I did Up with Chris Hayes last month. They invited me back on a semi-regular basis. We think we'll be back on a January, early Sunday morning MSNBC show. And I've got lots of bills I'll be working on. Hopefully we'll have some announcements on some important transportation grants. Secretary Ray LaHood's going to be here on the 17th of December. I hope I can be with him, but we may end up being stuck in Washington.
And you're doing those town hall phone
Did
calls.
a teletown hall last week. It was a great turnout. We had 7,300 people on the line. I was on Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. Just people over 50 were on the call. So we stay in touch. We can have a neighborhood meeting, a district town hall meeting in my office, January 11, from 11 to 1 at the Odell Horton, Clifford Davis Odell Horton building. And we're about out of time, so we need to close up.
I know. And just say your website so people can get more information.
www.cohen.house.gov. www.cohen.house.gov.
Okay, it was great being here.
Kontji, thank you for being with us. This is Congressman Steve Cohen. Not just Christy Turlington, not just Tanya Lee, but Kontji Anthony. Beauty and brains together. We thank you for watching. This has been Congressional Report.